Hello, it is Friday. That means bringing in with me, Jarod and Coach David Thorpe. How are you, Coach?
I'll be better when you say out loud the name of our episode today.
The title of this episode is "We Ain't Ducking No Smoke."
Good stuff right there.
And we'll get to that a little bit later. For those of you that have been paying attention, you know that's from Grizzlies All-Star starter and MVP candidate, Ja Morant. But first, before we get into the fun stuff, we got to talk about some serious stuff. And Coach, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the Brian Flores federal lawsuit, class action lawsuit that was filed, basically targeting the NFL's hiring practices. So the NFL was named in this suit along with three other franchises: the Denver Broncos, New York Giants, and Miami Dolphins. Brian Flores is citing racial discrimination in their hiring practices. And he goes out and, details everything in this 58-page suit. I should have given this to Judy ahead of time, given her legal brain to parse through it. So, Judy, if you got some time and you want to just do some stuff, take a look at that 58-page lawsuit and see if anything in there you find is of interest to you. But in all seriousness, everything came to a head. Sounds fun. Everything came to a head when text messages were released between Flores and his former boss, New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick. And in those text messages, Belichick accidentally, because he was talking to the wrong Brian, said, "Congratulations, you on the Giants job. I talked to the guys in New York and in Buffalo." And he's like, "Well, wait, Coach, are you talking to me, Brian Flores, or Brian Daboll?" And Bell's like, "Whoops. My bad. I meant Brian," right? And why that's a big deal is because Brian Flores had not yet even gone to his first interview. So, right, that's the that's the reality, or excuse me, his second interview. So that's the reality of it, right? In that the job was already given to Brian Daboll, and Flores had yet to go for his second interview, and it calls into question the legitimacy of the Rooney Rule. And Coach, the Rooney Rule to me has always been a farce and a joke because you cannot legislate diversity and inclusion, right? Like that doesn't work, because all you're going to have are people, particularly when it comes to hiring, because hiring is a subjective thing, right? People can say it's objective, but it isn't. The ultimate decision that sways people is often subjective. And all you have to do is make sure you have minority candidates go through the interview process, and you can prove I satisfied the Rooney Rule, right? There's no way to say I didn't. And in this case, the Giants had two black men go through allegedly second interviews. Brian Flores, Leslie Frazier, who's the defensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills, and Brian Daboll. Those are the three coaches that went through 2 rounds of interviews. So the Giants will say, "Well, we picked Daboll, but look, we had 2 black men go through 2 rounds of interviews. So we did what was right on our end." And this has been something that's happened throughout the history of the NFL. The big deal is they have 32 teams and 1 black coach in a league that's 70% black. And, it's problematic. And so first, I want your thoughts, and then we'll talk about the NBA and how I think, they should be looking at this situation.
Oh, man. There's so much to unpack, but if you start at the highest level looking down, take the 5-mile up in the air view, it's impossible not to recognize just how devastatingly terrible these teams have been in what's supposed to be one of the most important hires they can make, which is the head coaching hire. The cliche always is hiring the best guy. Well, you've heard me say this before on our show, probably a year ago. That's already false. You're not looking for the best guy. You need to understand you're looking for the best guys, because there isn't any just one person. If there was, we wouldn't have such a gigantic turnover rate, and teams wouldn't be terrible for 15, 20 years straight. So the second mistake I think that they make all the time, and I understand the point of the Rooney Rule, and I understand your criticism of it, but I would argue that I almost think they should just stop interviewing people, because that's where the dog and pony show is happening. And you get to see the color of the guy's skin clearly, or even in this case, their gender, because I'm sure there's some women who could do a great job too. I have to believe that if you just look at resumes and you erased everyone's name, and you didn't know what they looked like, and just looked at their resumes and their football experience to include not just the X's and O's, oh, we're going to run this and this and this, which you can really bedazzle owners, and look at their relationships and their history of leadership. You would not have just one man in the NFL who happens to be black. You'd have a lot more. But I think the interview process is where, and this happens in the NBA too, people get hired that should never be hired, but they look good in the interview. Yeah. They sell themselves in the interview. That's not how you lead men.
I agree. And it's funny that you say that, because the funny thing about head coaching is, but particularly if you're hiring someone who has never been one before or has no head coaching experience, that is a tough thing to gauge if they'll be good at it, right? Because, well, if you've never done it, we don't know, right? X's and O's, to your point, is one piece of a head coach job. It ain't the only part, right? And it's probably not even the most important part, if we're being honest, right? I look at a head coach more like a CEO, right? CEO's job is to impart the mission and vision of the organization and empower the people underneath him to perform and to execute against the mission and the vision within whatever their role is, right? A CEO should be able to talk finances and accounting and operations, but he has a CFO and a COO who can get into the nitty gritty on that, because that's their role, right? That's where they're experts. He's the chief that's stirring the pot, right? That's getting the soup. Oh yeah, we need more of this. How are we doing this, right? That's his role, and that's a lot of intangible qualities there, right? That you can't really. There's no thing that says, "Oh, I see you have to." What are the experiences you have right there? How do you lead men? It's more of a scenario thing, right? You throw this out to them. Okay, we're on a 4-game losing streak. X, Y, and Z happens. How do we handle this? It's more of a, how do we handle things in the moment? How do you handle individual personalities? That's a psychology thing. There's so many pieces involved in there beyond, hey, I was a great offensive coordinator. We went to the Super Bowl. I mean, all right, that's cool. Like, good. But that doesn't tell me that you can lead a team full of players, coaches, trainers, and all the other ancillary staff. It's a challenging thing, to be sure. And let's be clear, the NFL and the NBA too, they get it wrong all the time. To your point, that's why people get fired and teams stink. They get it wrong all the time. So it's not easy and not an exact science. You know, when you're looking at it from the NBA perspective, and Chauncey Billups had come out and said, you know, he's so proud of the NBA because the NBA has, God, I want to say 14 black head coaches. Devin, check me on that. My math might be wrong. And they have at least 8 or 9 black GM and head coach combinations, which is fantastic. But I've said this before on this show, Coach, the NBA shouldn't do that thing where it's like, ha, look how good we are. We're not the NFL, right? Because don't let me start digging around in your closets and going through what you got going on, because you got some skeletons in there too, friends. Okay. So don't be beating on your chest and all high and mighty. Look how great we are. We have more than one. Continue to focus on having the pool of candidates for these important jobs to be diverse, right? And not just pull from the same old standard places. And I get it. NFL, NBA, these jobs, every job on these teams are highly coveted because there are only 30 in the NBA and 32 in the NFL. So the competition to get in is already extremely difficult, right? But let's make sure we're really attracting, to your point, Coach, the best people and keeping that base that we fish from extremely large and wide.
I mean, I'm glad we're talking. Talk alone won't solve anything, but not talking about it would definitely doom a better future, an evolution. In my mind, I always think, Jarod, I wonder one day if the NBA is going to have 30 executives and 30 head coaches who are black or even just a minority. How would we handle that? I mean, obviously, I don't care if that's the way it is, especially if they're successful. If not, they'll lose their job like anyone else would. But we were okay for how many decades when it was just all white guys doing it? We need to be okay when it says all not white guys doing it, and then just go from there. But I think the bigger point is we got to fight the fight that needs fighting. And so I'm glad Coach Flores is doing this. I did not know. I wondered what the Belichick text story was. Other than just it seemed kind of a gaffe. Now if you're saying, okay, now I get it, right? Now I totally understand. And I mean, it's beyond a shame. It's just beyond a shame.
Yeah.
And you got to keep your nose down. Like your point is amazing. If you're the NBA, hey, let's not talk about it. Right? It's like Fight Club. Don't talk about the Fight Club. We know it exists.
Exactly.
Let's just do what we're supposed to do. We have enough problems here.
Yes.
And there are. It's a long list.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let's just do this and not crow about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, the owners can do whatever they want to do, and that's where we're down to is they're just terrible at who they're hiring. They have no idea on this particular sport, which is easier. I think your CEO point is amazing for the NFL. I don't think it's quite the same for the NBA.
No.
That's not to say that you're not way off.
Mm-hmm.
We just have way less employees.
Mm-hmm.
We have a far smaller group, and not just players, but staff. It's just smaller. Traveling is much easier. In the NFL, it ain't easy.
It's a traveling circus when each team goes. It literally is a traveling circus.
Yeah. So I do think organization matters, though. And I do think that that is an important, my son wants to do this one day. He's probably going to get an MBA. I'd like him to focus more on finance. I'm not sure he will. But managing schedules matters. Managing people matters. These are, I'm telling you, when the NBA fails at this, people like me who are a little bit on the periphery on some teams, for helping players, we see it. Mm-hmm. Just the lack of organization. Mm-hmm. When you don't know what the hell is going on a day in advance, it shows up, or much less a month in advance. So, this is where I think I hope the NFL handles this well. I have a feeling they're not going to.
No, and look, kudos to Coach Flores for putting his neck out on the line and doing this. The NFL owners, billionaires, only respond to economic pressure, right? They don't respond to anything else. So unless somehow you can find a way to hurt them in their wallets, probably ain't gonna matter to them, right? I will say, your point about organizations is so correct. And sorry, Randy, the Knicks are going to catch a stray. This is why players around the league, and you've talked to them, Coach, why the Knicks are never a thing they want to talk about in terms of their free agency, because they know that organization is run poorly, right? And it's little things, to your point. Hey, we're coming to visit on whatever. I told you I wanted a window seat like 5 times. Why do you keep putting me in the middle? Like, right? It's little things like that they don't, that people remember those things, right? And if you're not well run with the details, right? The details matter. This hurts you overall in terms of your standing and your reputation. But, we shall see what happens with Flores and everything else. Today on TrueHoop, Henry put out a piece. As you know, the Winter Olympics kicked off today in Beijing, China. Well, how about Beijing, huh? The 2 Olympics, the Winter and Summer Olympics.
Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. We won't get into the hows and whys of that. The sports world whips on China. And this is about the Warriors owner who made the unfortunate comments about the indigenous Turkish Muslims and their forced labor, right? Look, China as an entity, we know about all its ills and its human rights atrocities that it commits, slave labor. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And yet, entities like the NBA and even the NFL, because they want to globalize, and governments like ours get into bed with China, knowing all of the horrible atrocities they commit. Why? Because, well, money, right? I mean, and that's the thing. The capitalist machine stops for no one, right? That train, never late, always on time. That's how this works, man. Nothing is stopping you ever see the movie Money Train with Wesley Snipes and
long time
and Woody Harrelson? So the annoying police commander dude, nothing stops my money train. Like that's the thing. Nothing stops the money train, friends. Like, people die, whatever. We do not care. This train will continue. And what's going on in China, and Henry's done a wonderful job talking about this. To your point, Coach, we, just because it's far away from us, we should not care about it, right? This is something that we need to bring light to and continue to talk about. And when the NBA is doing bad shit, call them out on it, right? Like, you guys know what's going on. It isn't like, oh, we don't know. No, you know, right? You're just choosing your monetary interests over the interest of humans.
I was talking to Henry this morning. In fact, he didn't know that Nancy Pelosi said yesterday, basically, the athletes don't protest because it's a brutal regime. And I talked to Henry, and he put it in his, when I read it earlier, I saw he put it in there. He made a point to me, because I said, I'm glad she did that, because I don't want these athletes have a right and a privilege. They work so hard. Just go try to do your best. And you don't got to fight this fight for us. You do so much for us. And, but his point was, well, no one is going to do it.
Right.
And, we're both right and we're both wrong. I don't know the right answer to this. Unfortunately, our politicians don't tackle this better. It's such a terrible position to be in. It's just a terrible position to be in. And I don't blame the athletes before I blame businesses and government.
Yeah, for sure.
Gigantic entities before I blame the individual.
Yes. But particularly when for an athlete in any Olympic, summer or winter, this is what they train a 4-year cycle for, right? This is the height of their sport. Yeah. And to now have that taken away. And yes, we can talk to players like Jesse Owens and all different kinds of Olympians who have made stands and other Olympians who boycotted, and sure, but just the Brian Flores situation, not everyone can be that, right? Not everyone is willing to take that mantle on, and I don't judge them for not, right? There have been some black coaches in the NFL coach who, when the Flores lawsuit was announced, they're kind of sidestepping it. They're like, well, every interview I've been on has been above board, and I'm not mad at them per se, right? Like,
they're just trying to feed their families.
Right. Right. So I get it. The incentive systems are all screwed up, right? He's like, I can't mess this up and lose my chance. Right. This is the trick bag you get put in when you are an individual trying to fight systemic problems like racism and all the other isms that we have going on.
Well, and it's in Beijing. It'd be different if you wanted to protest in France about the Chinese, but they're there.
Yes.
And I don't want to spend a night in jail anywhere. Not in this country or any other country.
Especially not there.
No, come on. Come on.
Any autocratic regime where the laws are literally whatever the person in charge decides them to be, because that's what an autocracy is. I mean, let's be real about something. This isn't an autocracy where we live, but to your point, Coach, you wouldn't want to go to jail here because we know about the messed up legal system we have here. And you're a white guy, so you might be okay, right? Like, it's bad news. So no, listen. If none of these players want to stand up and say anything, I am not blaming them. They want to go home alive. I get it.
Yeah. I'm glad Henry wrote about it. TrueHoop's always going to tackle that kind of stuff that's uncomfortable for everyone else.
Absolutely. That's what we do here. God, we have a lot of football on the show today.
Well, because we just had this issue in basketball recently.
NFC title game was last Sunday. It was the Niners and the Rams. Of course, the Niners going to the no, wait, did I mess that up? Rams won, excuse me. Rams and the Niners. Rams going to the Super Bowl playing the Bengals. But there's a little bit of a little skirmish that broke out. Tell us about it, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't typically read about any of the football stuff, but I saw the headlines, and apparently a Niner fan might have even started an argument with the Rams fan. The Rams fan came over, punched him. He fell down. The Niners guy fell down and hit his head on the concrete, and now he's in like induced coma. And it's just so mind-boggling to me the way, their fans are so attached to their teams like it's a gang. And it's unsettling, and it's the same thing in our sport has it too. Our fans aren't necessarily any different. Some are, some aren't. We're in such a crazy. It's always been this way, obviously, and all around the world this is the way. I mean, I have players that I help that play in Europe, beautiful countries, beautiful cities, but man, I've had guys have batteries thrown at them like it's during a game, like it's
crazy. That mindset, Coach, like, I don't understand it. Like, I get it. Like, cheer, boo the other team. That's fine, whatever. But the willingness to think that you are engaging and to engage yourself with the participants on the field of play, like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, that's not, you're not there for that. That's not, you don't have a role to play.
But so in this particular story, though, the Rams fan might have said something to the Niners fan who was hanging out with other Niners fans, but he went over and pushed the Rams fan guy. I may have told you this once before. When I first started dating my wife, I mean, I was 22, she was 19. So we would go to, like a restaurant bar kind of places. She wasn't old enough to get into a real bar. I barely was. And my wife was a wildly attractive woman when she was 19. No surprise. Why she dated me, it's still more or less a mystery. But she did. And I told her once right to her face, I said, honey, if we're at a bar, restaurant bar, and some dude makes a comment to you, whatever, I'm not going to be the guy that throws the punch, because I just started coaching and teaching, and I'll get arrested and I'll go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And there goes that career.
Right.
And it's not worth it to fight some dude who notices you the same way I noticed you. He
Right.
just got to be a caveman about it.
Right.
I said, we're just going to leave. And of course, she was like, if you threw a punch over me, you're a jackass. 'Cause I don't want you going to jail either, because then we're not getting married, right? Because you're not going to be around. And so I think this guy's a doctor, the one that's in a coma. Like, what are you doing?
I just
starting a fight with someone. My God.
Committing physical assault because someone said something about the team you root for. Like what?
Or whatever. Like,
right.
Like, why are you risking jail or a hospital?
Right. I don't get it, man. But can I say, Coach, we're evolved humans. Not everyone is as evolved and enlightened as we are.
Yeah. But of course, I'm such an idiot now in terms of politics. I'm just wondering, were these motherfuckers vaccinated? I feel like the same idiots who don't get vaccinated are doing fights in NFL parking lots before a game.
The Venn diagram of non-vax fighters. Like, I bet it's
exactly.
I'm sure that's pretty interesting to look at.
All right, let's talk hoops.
Speaking of evolved and enlightened.
Yeah.
So there was a lengthy piece in The Athletic about Kyrie Irving. You guys, if you're subscribed to The Athletic, you can get up there and you can read it if you want. What I found interesting in that piece, Coach, is just sort of the multi layers to Kyrie Irving, right? I don't profess to know him. I know some people tangentially around him. And I've asked him questions in large scrum settings, never one-on-one direct. He always strikes me first on the basketball court as a supremely gifted basketball
talented dude.
Like, oh my God. Like,
as skilled as there is.
Thank you. As skilled as there is. Like, so good with that thing. Like, it's uncanny. It's almost actually not normal how skilled he is. Like, that's not a thing. Like, that's not, no one should be that skilled at something.
There's more of almost everything you can think about on the planet than there are people who can dribble the ball like Kyrie Irving.
Right.
Pick whatever you want. Brain surgeon, musical songwriter. I know there's more people of all of that than there are people who can dribble like that dude.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, he's always struck me off the court, at least in interviews, as someone who's thoughtful and who thinks about things on a deeper level, and someone who cares about certain things outside of himself, right? And is somewhat generous with his time and with his money and his giving and whatever. Now, we know that he refuses to take the vaccine, and that makes him ineligible to play home games for the Brooklyn Nets or play against the New York Knicks because they're also in New York City. The question I have is, if I were to ask Kyrie, it's not even about the vaccine or anything else. The question I would ask is, how important is basketball to you? Professionally, NBA basketball. And I'm not looking for a quote unquote right answer. I just want to know his answer, right? Whatever that answer is. Because if it's not the main thing right now, and it doesn't have to be, by the way, I'm being very clear about that. It doesn't have to be.
Right.
Then he owes it to his teammates and to the organization to say, hey man, like, I'm not 100% in on this. This isn't the main thing for me right now. Let's try to figure something out where you guys can have everyone who's invested here doing what they have to do.
All right. So Jarod, what you're saying, it makes a lot of sense, but my perspective is a little bit different. I got a degree in psychology. I've worked in mental hospitals. I've been in positions where I've had to help, advise, guide, mentor people dealing with different kinds of mental issues or their family member / spouse. That doesn't make me an expert at all. I do have some experience with it. And I've said to you, I think on and off air, and I'm not the only one who said this, that I think there's a more deeper seated issue mentally with him. And that doesn't mean he's weak-minded, nothing like that at all. This is like having cancer when you've got any kind of issue. And I don't know if he does or not. I just suspect that he does because based on behavior, And what that means to me, though, Jarod, is my experience says people who are suffering from those issues, they can be very manipulative, but they can be really good at pretending they're not. And so I think he needs help. I think he needs help. He ain't the only unvaccinated person. So, but if you look at the totality of his decisions over these last 5, 6, 7 years, this is just one of them that makes me think he and maybe he's getting help, which would be great. But when you can't control a lot of what's going on with you internally, you tend to want to, this is my diagnosis. You tend to want to control externally. And I've been a victim of that. People who are really struggling with it, who now want to control me. And I it's very obvious to me when it's me they're trying to control. And I quickly can realize they're trying to do it elsewhere too. This is a young man, I think, in pain, in maybe not terrible pain. I'm not suggesting that I know more than that, but mostly I feel for his situation because Jarod, life only gets harder as your health decays physically. Obviously what I witnessed, my dad was in his 80s and most of his life he was okay, but starting in his early 70s, it started going downhill. For me, that's 14 years from now. When my dad first got sick at 71, I'm going to be 57 in 10 days, 12 days, whatever. Life gets harder as your kids age and deal with teenagerism and all that kind of shit. And you have friends that are starting dealing with things. Kyrie should be living the greatest life ever right now. And the fact that he can't, and it's not that he won't, because that's part of the disease. It's that he can't. To me, it's just sad. I just want him to have as happy a life as he can for as long as he can, because life gets just harder later. And this is just one of the many things going on with him. That's how I see it. Just speaking honestly.
And and that's, I appreciate your perspective. Again, I have no such background on that sort of thing, so I will never try to, suggest anything from that perspective. I'm just looking at it from a basketball standpoint and from a just overall, because the thing about, coach, playing NBA basketball, like, or any high level sport, like, you got to be in it, right? Or else, like, whoa, what are you doing, right? Like, and it isn't for him. He doesn't need the money. Like, he's good, right? Like, he's fine. Like, so he doesn't need to, like, no, I got to keep playing because I've got, a million things I have to pay. Like, he's fine, right? In the piece, it talked about, there's a line where he's talking to his aunt on the Standing Rock Reservation, and he says, "Who can I trust?" Right? Does he have trust issues with people with whom I don't know? There seems to be, to your point, a lot of things going on internally that either he needs to address, maybe he is addressing. I don't know. And I don't even know that we need to know, right? If it's our business to know what those things are. But as it relates to the public thing you do, which is play basketball, right? Those things are causing problems for your coworkers and the people around you, right? It's impacting them in a negative way. And there has to be some kind of resolution to that. And we talked about this last week. He's got the player option at the end of this season. The Nets took their extension off the table. I mean, Sean Marks is not putting that extension back on the table, right? So Kyrie is likely going to opt in, right? Because who's going to leave $40 million just laying around? Nobody. But then we're back in that situation again, because Eric Adams has said it numerous times, and I've said it. Everyone assumes the vaccine mandate is going to get lifted, and based on what? Who's told you that? And if that's true, then the reverse is also true. It could never get lifted and stay that way forever. Well, he is not getting the vaccine. It is very clear. When he came back and he was asked 2 or 3 games in, "Hey, Kyrie, does this big win make you think more about getting the vaccine?" He's like, "Bro, like, I've sat out what makes you think a basketball game now is going to make me change my mind?" I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, he's not, right? So the Nets don't want to go through this for another year. So, there's some hard decisions that the franchise is going to have to make. We know James Harden isn't happy with it. That's clear. They're going to have to make some serious tough decisions. And it starts with Sean and Kevin Durant having a conversation, being like, "Look, dude, this ain't it. You're here for the next 5 years. We want to maximize your title window. This is not, it's not happening like this. We got to do something different."
I think I just read or heard yesterday that our armed forces, our American armed forces, are basically going to a vaccine or you're out procedure. It could have been in a state, National Guard, but I think it's going to be. I think again, I just had a lot going on yesterday. I think that our army is basically saying you're vaccinated or you're no longer be part of this nation's armed forces. And so, to your point, you just said this. The NBA might do the same thing forever. The army wasn't saying for now. It was like, this is just one of the many vaccinations you're going to have going forward because COVID's not going to disappear. So the way it's going to disappear is if everyone gets vaccinated. So the army is going to do that because what we're not going to do is lose a war or a man because we can't field the team.
Yeah, right.
There's real consequences when the army can't field the team.
Death.
Yeah, so you're right. The NBA might do the same thing. Well, the Army and Navy are doing, the Air Force, we should do it too.
Well, here's the other thing, Coach. Like, people act like vaccine mandates are something out of like we've never heard of this before. Everyone who is listening to this, watching, whatever, if you went to school or camp in your life, you could not go unless you were vaccinated. Like, I mean, this isn't new. Like, we've been doing this. So this should not be, oh my God, people shouldn't be. We've been mandating vaccines since vaccines were invented. Like, so I don't really understand what the pushback is all about. I mean, I do, but that's a conversation for a different day.
I want to finish with this on that what you just said. My wife works with 8 elementary school aged, severely autistic children. All but one is nonverbal. And there's one young man who always wears a mask. And I wouldn't normally talk about their race, but it matters here. He might be I don't know if he's the only Black kid in the class. I think he is, but he's the only one that wears a mask all the time because he lives with grandma. And my wife said every single morning and afternoon when grandma comes to get him, she's in a mask, he's in a mask, and he's in a mask to make sure grandma doesn't get COVID. And the reason why the race matters is because we know what this disease has done to the Black communities in America. And I always now, this is the new thing for me. I've always thought about different things during the course of this pandemic, but this latest one is you're getting vaccinated so that the chances of us giving this disease to this young man who's 6 or whatever, who then he'd probably be fine, but grandma may not be fine. And so we're doing it because all of us are better off, not just us, but all of us are better off if everyone gets vaccinated. There's just less of a chance you're going to pass it on and less of a chance they're going to get sick. This is why there's always been mandates for it.
Right.
It doesn't mean it'll eliminate it. Just we're going to be way better off with it. That's all.
It's, what can I say, guys? This is common sense. But getting back to on the floor, this has been a difficult season for Coach Steve Nash. They're mired in their longest losing streak right now. And there are lots of things going on in Brooklyn, right? Joe Harris now going for a 3rd or 4th opinion on that ankle. That's problematic because he hasn't played more than like 5 games to start the season. Kevin Durant still rehabbing his MCL, should be back if the timeline stays on point the Monday after the All-Star break. That will be a much needed big joker back in the deck for them. And they have seen some positive things in that. We always say necessity is the mother of invention. Well, the kids have had to play because we got problems. And, to steal a line from a movie, the kids are all right. Kessler Edwards is doing some pretty amazing things, a 6'7" long wing who can guard and who can shoot threes. When they played the Suns the other night, it was funny, we talked about Tibbs and when a rookie makes a mistake or a young player, I don't see him for weeks. Well, Nash has no choice, right? They got to stay on the floor.
Right.
And after the game, because Chris Paul caught him twice with 2 rip-through moves and got called for foul. And Steve said, he has to go through those things. Like, that's a stabby Chris Paul veteran play that he'll remember that next time. Like, but how else is he going to learn? Like, seeing tape or whatever is one thing. No, you got to be in the game in the moment to know, hands back. Because that dude, smartest dude in the league, is going to come and I'm going to get called because they're going to call it every time.
Yeah, but let's just be clear. Tell me if I'm wrong because I didn't see the game, but I know Chris Paul. He is saving that rip through move. Because remember, if you rip through, they don't give you 2 free throws.
Yes,
unless you're in the bonus.
Correct.
So he waits. I bet he waited.
Yes.
and then got himself 2 free throws.
Correct. Yes.
And even more than that, again, I didn't see the game, but the next level of chess when you're doing what I'm describing is you're doing it when you know you have an offensive rotation that's going to struggle to score. So I'm not going to do it when I got Book cooking.
Right.
This rookie keeps reaching in, or young. Is Kessler a rookie?
Yeah, rookie.
Yeah. His hands are too close to me. He ain't stopping. I am not going to make him pay when we're not in the bonus, nor am I going to make him pay when I can throw them on a book. But when I can't just throw them on a book or they're guarding book well, now I got this up my sleeve. That's next level chess.
So he did it twice. First half, second half. First time, they weren't in the bonus yet, but that got them to the number of fouls to get in the bonus. Right, and the second half, then they were all right, I'm getting free throws. And again, and he knew, coming around that screen, because he was looking ball, and to look ball, you got to keep close to your man. No. Put those hands away because you're going to get nailed every time. But, you got to learn.
Listen, this sport, to your point on the kids and everything, I did a Zoom call yesterday. I use Google Meet with a former top 5 pick, very talented player. And his manager reached out to me. He just wanted some guidance on some things. So we watched tape for about an hour. And the kid's head, he's a young player, his head's spinning. Like, this is a hard league, man. There's a lot going on. And I can watch the same. I watched the game that we watched tape on twice, just on Synergy, the clips. But on the third, I watched it twice before we did it together. But on the third time, I saw some other things. There's just so much to see for someone like me, especially who watches games all the time. For these young guys who on the court, I can't even imagine. There's so many things to think about when you're guarding Chris Paul.
Yeah.
But you forget about the easiest one, which is just don't foul the guy.
Well, it's so funny you say that, Coach, because they've been deploying Edwards on the other team's best players, Curry, Thompson, and he's been holding his own and doing just fine. DeRozan and all that. I can see it, Coach, when I watch the games, because I can see him thinking, okay, shit, screen's coming. Okay, I got you, and it's like, hold up, and I'm like, damn. If I'm processing it at like fucking molasses speed, right? Like, what's this poor kid doing in the game, right? But experience. This is a reference point. The more you go through it, you'll get it.
Right. Those are great reference points. Chris Paul, if on the football side of things, he's the closest thing to Tom Brady we have right now. He isn't as successful in winning championships. It's a different sport. If Tom Brady had to win best of 7 or even best of 3, he wouldn't have nearly as many rings.
Right.
Telling you right now. One and done is just way better for the favorite all the time. And they're typically the favorite. So I'm sorry. They're typically not the favorite. The Patriots had a bunch of years where they weren't the best team.
Right.
But one game, they've got a genius coach, genius quarterback. They figured out and pulled the upset, whatever. Chris Paul is the closest thing. So he is seeing things like slow motion, man. It's just, he sees them before they're coming. Let's just be clear. I read Tom Brady. My dad, actually, one of the last conversations we had, is I said to him, Brady said he makes the decision of where he's throwing it almost always before the ball is snapped. He's still got to go through his progression, but also he's using his eyes to move chess players around, and then he throws it to where he was going to throw it in the first place. He's still got to go through it. Chris Paul is no different. Like, he's seen all this stuff before. It's so many times before. And whereas where did Edwards play last year?
Pepperdine.
I mean, come on. He's played against like 11 NBA players in his life. And he sees that in one game. Chris Paul it's just not fair. Yeah. But you learn. If you're smart, you do learn. I don't know if you do this, and I don't do it enough, but I know Henry, when he reads, he's always making notes.
Yeah, I do.
That's what these NBA players should do. Is make notes of these games. Think about these things all the time. You'll be able to call them faster the next time you play this team or see this action. I mean, Chris Paul he has an encyclopedia of information.
And can reference it at any moment. Like, it's just, that's the advantage, right? Of what is he, 15, 16-year vet versus rookie playing his 30th game or whatever number it is.
If you study their brain, if we had that kind of advanced technology, which one day we'd probably be able to, where the basketball playing part of his brain is, it's just fucking enormous. Yeah.
Moving across the country to the Clippers, Ty Lue said, I think last night or the night before, Kawhi Leonard not looking great in terms of a comeback this season, and he's waiting on the Paul George MRI. He says, Ty Lue, when asked about the stars being out, we know Kawhi's probably not going to come back. Asked to clarify later, Lue said he hopes every day Kawhi will return, and then he reiterated his phrase tonight that that was used about PG's MRI. Hope he's stronger than ever, right? Like, so PG might be back, and we hope he'll be fine. Kawhi this season looking highly unlikely. And if you're the Clippers, the question is, what do you do? Right? Do you still try to go in and try to make a playoff push and all that, or do you say, man, let's get PG healthy again? Third season in a compressed time frame. Do we just punt, and say, forget it? Let's build and do what we got to do.
Are they at 500 this year?
I think so. I think they're.
They might
I mean, can you check where they are? They're in the top 10. They're certainly in the. I think they got to be
close. They might be 27 and 27. They might be 10 or 11 seed right now. He's one of the best coaches in the world now.
Clippers, Devin. Thank you.
Yeah, the Clippers. They're about 500 without Kawhi at all, which is, forget about the Kawhi as the player, and you're not having him. It's the Kawhi on your team, so you believe. They don't have that, and yet they've won, I think, half their games. It's really 27-27. I got it. Eighth place
and eighth in the West. So but
good coaching right there, man.
Oh, I mean, Ty Lue, Spo. They're incredible. Those guys in game adjustments and everything. They're wonderful. But if you were the Clippers coach, what would you do? Would you say, man, let's just punt and get some rest? No, you're pushing. Okay.
I mean, I would keep playing. Like, they didn't start training. They didn't start Terrence Mann last night. That was kind of weird. But I would not be afraid to play younger guys, but I would try to win games. I think winning does breed winning. It is contagious. It is a habit, expectations, how you talk to each other. When you expect to win and don't, even if you shouldn't expect to win, there's a learning process there, how we talk to each other. I read an article the other day about two things. The other day, I read an article about the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are going for a three-peat, which is impossible to imagine, especially they're just as pandemic short and crazy as the NBA. And they've just an incredibly well-run organization. And there's just an accountability aspect of what they do. And I should say they're going for a three-peat, but 4 years ago, they had the best record in the league and lost in the first round. And that was a reference point they used. So they've really been the best team in hockey for going on 4 years. Now they're right there for one of the top teams this year. And I read an article today about Fred VanVleet and what an amazing story he is. I'm going to be writing about him, I think, in the next couple of weeks. But he initially wasn't a great teammate in high school. And then in college, the way he was trying to hold teammates accountable, he was just kind of an ass about it. And that's really changed. And so I think there's a learning process. If the Clippers can be 500 without Kawhi and
Paul George.
And Paul George for almost the whole season. I think he hasn't played very much. Bring those two guys back with what they'll have learned. And with Ty Lue, I think they're going to be really good. No,
that's an interesting point you made. Yeah, I didn't think about it from the culture standpoint, but you're right. They got a lot of young guys. Like, start them, give them, but say, no, we expect to win these games. And then when your two big guns come back, it's like, we're ready.
Oh, yeah.
No, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
All-star reserves. We're not going to belabor the point, but let's pull these up and see who made the list. Western Conference. Judy, if you can pull up those two tweets. The two Suns teammates made it. Booker and Chris Paul. Luka Doncic, Rudy Gobert, Draymond, Donovan Mitchell, Karl Anthony Towns. I have nothing to quibble with here. Draymond obviously will not play, so they're going to have to pick a replacement for him. The only thing on the West I had a complaint about was Andrew Wiggins. We talked about that last week. That was the only one where I was like, all-star starter? I don't think so.
Yeah,
but
he isn't that, but he made it fine.
Fine, whatever.
Who's going to replace Green?
They haven't announced it yet, I don't think.
But I'm asking you, what do you think?
Oh, who do I think? Who hasn't gotten on? Who I think is a snub out there? Oh, DeJounte Murray, of course.
DeJounte Murray, Anthony Davis, both, right?
Davis, no for me, because I mean,
played enough.
He might, but he hasn't played enough. Sorry, but DeJounte Murray is more deserving.
I think so too. And we talked about him last week. I would pick him as well. And then what about the East?
Show us the East, Judy. Jimmy, Darius Garland, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Middleton, Tatum, VanVleet. By the way, when VanVleet made it, his teammates were so happy for him. You saw it. It was super cool. Undrafted guy, by the way. All-star. Very nice.
Yeah. Did you see what Kyle Lowry did?
No. What did he do?
I meant to put it in the doc. I don't know if I did. He was in a press conference, and then he said, he ended it by saying, "Shout out to my boy, Fred VanVleet, all-star. And then I forget what he said after that, but it's just a quick one-liner. It was just great. Like he's that dude. Yeah. I think there's like 4 guys.
Yeah.
Brad Miller was one. Do you know who they were?
Devin just put up here. John Starks, Brad Miller, Ben Wallace.
Yeah. That's,
yeah.
I mean, pretty impressive. John Starks, good for you too. Yeah.
Undrafted, man. It's tough.
That's pretty impressive.
I thought Jarrett Allen should have been an all-star.
Sure he should have been.
I thought maybe Miles Bridges and LaMelo maybe stole votes from each other potentially.
But Jarrett Allen should get in. I mean, the Cleveland's one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah, they sure
should
are.
have 2 guys.
They sure are.
And where's in
Cleveland?
Come on now. Let's start a thing. Let's get Jarrett Allen in the game.
Yeah, I think we should. And the only
Durant.
I would quibble with is maybe Middleton. I'm like,
no, right.
I was like, I don't think he should be an all-star. I don't think so. I mean, I think they're going by last year's postseason. He's pretty awesome, but he's not been great this regular season. But whatever. As you and I have talked about all the time, we care about all NBA. Forget about all-star.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Jazz and Warriors could be round 2, coach. Talk to us about that. Is that how it would go right now?
No. Yeah, it could be. It depends on where they end up. But have you seen Draymond and those guys trolling Rudy Gobert?
No, what did Draymond say? Okay, let's watch.
Who have you seen taking this the hardest when they have not made it?
One thing I can assure you, if I didn't make it this year, I wasn't going to cry. I can 100% assure you
killing
that.
Rudy.
It has to be Rudy. I mean, the man cried on national television when he didn't make the All-Star team. Thank God he made the next 3.
Stop it, Dre.
So what I'm saying, Jarod, is I understand why TNT wants Draymond. Of course. He's a walking quote, very interesting guy, very charismatic, extremely bright. I see what Judy's putting in the comments. I love that Rudy Gobert cried.
Yeah, it mattered.
But he didn't make it. I don't even remember the story, but I love it. I mean, come on, this guy is from France, and when you were that tall at a young age, I've coached plenty of tall young guys. They don't like themselves.
No.
They don't like standing up straight.
Nope.
Life is hard for them. Most seniors don't want to be noticed. And how can you help when you're that tall? So I don't care if you want to war with Rudy Gobert, but don't do it on national TV because Rudy doesn't have the same platform. He's not on national TV all the time. I don't love that look. I want TNT to say to Draymond, pick on the old guys, fine, but don't be picking on the guys you're playing against. Because we're not going to have them on the show and give them the same 5 minutes.
The interesting thing about Rudy is, coach, and you know this because you talk to players around the league as I do. He's kind of the whipping boy of players around the league. They go at him all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't think he's deserving of all of his Defensive Player of the Year talk, and a lot of that's tied into the fact that he's an analytics darling, and a lot of the current players hate analytics and all that. And, they also value switchability, right? Especially the scorers do, right? Like your Kevin Durant and people like that. So for them, it's like they downgrade Rudy because they're like, yeah, but he can't come out on the wing and guard me. So no, I don't, right? So they give much more credence to someone like Draymond or a Ben Simmons, right? Someone who can come out and challenge them, right? Guard them out in their space. But I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. That's maybe true, but you don't even try to go in the paint when he's there. Right? Like you don't even attempt it because
look at the rim.
You're like, the rim. You're like, I can't go up over that dude. I mean, Anthony Edwards does try to dunk over everybody, so he's like, he's young and he doesn't care.
But you're not going to make a living dunking on Rudy Gobert.
No,
you might get a poster, but you're going to be blocked 2 or 3 times, miss another 4 times. I don't like. One of the announcers on team, I don't know catch which one it was, but he also said something like, there's no mean streets in Paris. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, there are. Yeah,
there's no big city in the world that doesn't have mean streets.
Exactly.
because the billionaires take everything and they need someone to work around whatever. So
correct.
I don't like that. I don't like that machismo mentality. I don't think it's good for the NBA. That's part of what I was going to get to is the whole idea that I'm a grown ass man and I definitely have no problem crying, and not just when my dad dies. I could think of 25 movies that make me cry right away. There's things I couldn't even mention given the eulogy to my dad because I'd just cried right away and never be able to return. So I couldn't go into it. So, but don't call me less than a man because of that. You can say I'm less than a man for other reasons. I don't have big arms or big chest, whatever. But it's not because of that. So I don't like where we're going with that. I don't think it's smart. Let the NFL have their space.
Correct. Yeah.
The NBA can be more evolved that way.
I agree.
I'm a big believer in that.
Let them be cavemen. And a lot of that too is because Rudy's from France, right? And there's this idea that, oh, France is for soft people. And I'm like, okay, why don't you learn a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Coach, the league is now aware of the Memphis Grizzlies. If they didn't know about them before, they know now. Judy, if you can play that clip of Ja Morant and Tripp post game after the Knicks game the other night. Oh, that's the article. The next link. Yeah, this one.
Here it is.
Mic check. Yo. It's the unicorn man and the ninja in here checking in. Y'all ready? Media is starting now.
See, we love that. That brings joy to us. That back and forth. That just, that's just what we like. So, you want to play that game? We can play that game. It's cool. It's all on in between the lines. Like we're competing for something huge. Like so, it's never personal. I don't care who I'm talking to. It's just a person right here, and I'm just gonna say what I feel, and I'm gonna do what I feel too, and that's what they're gonna do. And we appreciate, if you bring it and we on that, that's cool. But
what we look for.
That's what you saw happen. You saw
ain't no running in the M, man. We climb up the chimney.
Yeah, for sure.
We ain't ducking no smoke, man. We're gonna let everybody know we here. We're gonna play hard, trying to get a win. And if you don't like it, oh well.
Yeah, you might as well bring it. So
if you're gonna cry, what the baby's gonna do.
that ending is my favorite. If you're gonna cry, what the baby's gonna do.
What was the impetus of that? There was a post.
Yeah, so late in the fourth quarter, Julius Randle, when the Knicks were trying to make a comeback, he kind of wandered into the huddle, and Randle was trying to punk them all game, right? Trying to give it to Jackson and Morant and come at them, and they weren't backing down. The young guys were like, "No, we're here. We're gonna keep talking." And Randle went into the huddle, talked something to Desmond Bane. They both got teed up. That was Randle's second tech, so he got tossed. And the next possession, Bane drilled a three, blew the lead back up to double digits. Game over. Whatever, doing their thing. Look, everyone knows I'm in the tank for this Grizzlies team. By the way, I want to put this out there. Been on this train 3 years ago. All right. I didn't jump on this season. All right. Since they drafted my guy Tripp, I've been about the Grizzlies. I just love their energy, coach. They're here and they're announcing it and they're not afraid. There's an article McMahon wrote on ESPN where there's some trash talk in that game against the Lakers, and LeBron didn't close out to a shooter or something. Desmond Bane says to him, those footsteps ain't scaring nobody. Right. And that's LeBron. And they're like, but they're cool. And those guys, I know this because I talked to them at All-Star a few years ago. It was Ja's rookie year. And they were like, look, we respect our opponents, all of them. Like LeBron, all these great players in the league. We want to accomplish what they've accomplished. But when we step on the court in between those lines, we ain't afraid of nobody. And that's the attitude you have to have, right? Or else you're gonna get killed in this league. If you walk into a game with fear in your eyes and heart already, and not appropriate fear, as Steve Kerr calls it, you're gonna get your lunch eaten. And these kids are having a good time. A nice progression for them this year would be, all right, you win the first round and you make it tough on whoever you play in the second round.
Oh, I think they can be better than that, although we'll see what happens at the trade deadline, Jarod, and see if they had any more help. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about Jeremy Grant.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have been texting me that they're hearing some things that maybe that they'll get Jeremy Grant. I have no idea what will happen. But when Ja Morant's on your team, and you've got a mature roster now, maturing,
mm-hmm.
you can knock anyone out 4 games in 7. I mean, he's Superman. I think there's two things. One, they're getting better. Like they're still far away from where they're going to get,
mm-hmm.
and that's a fun ride. And part of that process is what you said, according to Ja, respecting others, right? The best players I ever coached respected our opponents.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that they might be faced with a challenge, but disrespecting wasn't going to happen. And then the other part of that is Jaren Jackson's success should make Warrior fans happy with Wiseman, right? He was bad for a while, and now he's fantastic. You know, Keep talking. I'll be right back. My dog just turned on my office TV.
Don't worry. No, they are incredible. And Devin says, a first round flameout will be disappointing. I think, look, if you've watched this team and you've paid attention, this is the next natural progression for them, right? 2 years ago, they lost in the play-in inside the bubble to a hot shooting Damian Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers. Last year, they beat the Warriors in Chase Center in the play-in and beat the Utah Jazz in game 1 of that series, right? And mind you, Jackson was hurt pretty much that whole year. This season now, they for sure should win their first round. And if they make a trade, as you say, so I think the way it would stack up right now, if the seedings hold, they would play the Warriors in the second round, I think, because it's 1-8, 2-7, 3-6, 4-5. So the conference semis. If they push the Warriors 6-7, it's the Warriors. It's Steph, Clay, Draymond. Like, they got some championship pedigree. They're no easy pushovers. But if they push them and they're up 3-2 or they go up 2-1, like, all right, these guys are legit. So I think anytime this is the progression that we like to see, right? Like, now, if they make a big time trade, they have the pieces to do it. Well, then who knows what we're talking about. But next Thursday, we'll see if anybody decides what they're doing here. Talk quickly, Coach, about the Eastern Conference standings. We talked about the Nets earlier. I mean, it's a jumble. Between first place and sixth place, 3 games separate 1 through 6.
It's crazy. Yeah, I just look at it this morning. I don't think the Bulls are going to be in the top 4, but they're leading the East right now. But Lonzo's out for a while. They're supposed to get Pat Williams back maybe after the All-Star break. He's a second-year player. He's 20.
Do they make a trade?
Yeah, right. They could. Yeah. It's going to be the Raptors are rolling and have some players to make a deal if they want. I have a trade idea for them, actually. I want to get your opinion on it.
Let's go with it.
Yeah, Judy, if you want to show the trade idea. I was asked by someone inside the NBA, what do I think of a Siakam-Sabonis deal?
Ooh.
And I don't like the Siakam idea if I'm Toronto. I already have an all-NBA level player. I ain't trade him. But I started thinking, well, the Raptors are playing, they're not even starting a center. Boucher came off the bench the last game. So I started thinking, well, they've got a lot of wings that are switchable and can play 4. And Anunoby, didn't he play in Indiana? Yes.
He did. Yes, he sure did.
I started thinking, well, what if it was OG and Sabonis? And so, if you're trading Sabonis, you're not getting an all-star back, but Sabonis didn't make the all-star this year. But OG has a chance to make an all-star team. He's really getting better. He's 24 years old. So I thought maybe that could be the crutch of a deal where the Pacers, because TJ Warren's never coming back, and he's a free agent a year. So maybe they get OG and the Raptors get themselves a legit center.
I like this, Coach, because it gives them rebounding and scoring inside. And even though you're giving up OG, who was an excellent perimeter defender, the Raptors still have a lot of good perimeter defense around him, because if you're going to have Sabonis, you need to have strong perimeter defense around him, just because if he gets pulled out on a switch, you got some challenges there, right? So
he's not terrible on defense. I looked up his metrics. He's just not elite. He's not close to being elite. But you got a chance to have it with the way Siakam's playing and the way Barnes passes and the way Van Vliet's playing. Like, you could be a top 5 offense with him, and you could be a top 10 defense this year anyway. So they're just a team to watch. And if you get to the postseason against them, like a lot of these teams, including the Hawks, by the way, who beat Phoenix last night, they're rolling. I think the Raptors might be the only team that's beat. Maybe they're 8-2 in the last 10. Toronto and someone else beat them.
Yeah,
they're coming too. Atlanta's coming.
They stopped Phoenix's win streak last night. They're doing well. All right, a word about Steph before we get to our top 5s.
Yeah. A word about what?
Steph Curry. You wanted to say anything about Steph Curry?
Oh, just that. Yeah. A girl hit like a 28-footer in a game in Iowa the other day. And that's Steph. That's just getting people to believe. You're not going to be a guy, because this girl made it and looked cold. Like, I got this in my game. And I give Steph credit for that. Yeah. Her reaction was like, yeah, I can do that. And she looks like she weighs like 84 pounds. She's rolling in, 28-foot shots in a big 2 top 25 teams. Look at how deep that shot was.
That was great. I remember, I think Durant posted that too. It was like, wow, killer. All right, Coach, top 5. Who you got?
I got Sixers and Bucks tied at 5.
Okay. At 5, I got the Miami Heat.
That's who I have at 4.
At 4, I have the Utah Jazz.
I'm down on Utah. I don't have them in my top 5. They're just losing too much recently. They're struggling. Number 3 for me, your Memphis Grizzlies.
Well, they are, of course, my number 3 team as well.
Yeah. And then I got Warriors 2, Suns 1. What do you have?
As do I. Look, the Suns, I've been watching them closely the last week. Last night, notwithstanding they lost, and I know Judy's going to come on in a minute. The way they close out games, Coach, last night notwithstanding, I just love what I see out of Phoenix. Yes, we're going, Judy. We're going. Shout out to the Phoenix Suns, best team in the league. Everyone stay safe. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next Monday.